Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to episode number 49 to the Lead to Greatness podcast. As we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential, and together we can change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have Bill Woolsey. Bill is the president and founder of FiveTwo Network, a network that equips entrepreneurs to launch a variety of suitable startups. Over the past decade, Bill and his team has been able to help produce new and renewed churches, homeless shelters, mobile medical clinics, mobile food ministries to underserved communities, sports ministries, preschools, single mothers groups, recover ministries, and coffee shops, all of them loving their communities in incredible ways. Please help me welcome Bill Woolsey with how to launch a business startup.
This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
Growing up in Central Texas, so my grandparents, had been sharecroppers. My grandpa sold Lone Star beer. They lived on a farm. I ended up living with them for a year when I was 6 because my parents got a divorce. So, and that was kind of the formative thing, in my life, living with my grandparents. That was a faith formation, but also just a life formation. You always polish your shoes. You always wear a belt. Those kind of things that Papa taught me. So with Papa, it was definitely politeness. It was friendliness. So he sold beer, and I remember you would go with him to a restaurant or a store, and there was never anybody he didn't like. And he was constantly, he would woo the waitress, he would woo the clerk, And so there was this whole thing of just treating people with friendliness and respect. And my grandma, on the other hand, she was this wonderful woman. You could invite anybody to their house at any time. I could invite a stranger on Christmas Day and it didn't matter to her. So there was this whole openness, just very loving, godly people who live their faith. That nugget that Papa put into me on treating people with respect and just being friendly and being nice to people, and grandmas of hospitality, inviting people into your home, how that whole thing really falls into leading people, because people can tell when you don't respect them, right? They know when we have a phrase in our training process, you can't reach someone you hate. And they know when you don't really love them, when they're just a notch on your belt or something. So that authenticity, when I learned that from my grandparents, and that's really a core of how I lead and what we help people understand, which flows from Jesus. This whole thing of loving your neighbor as yourself, really loving them, not just pretending to love them.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the number one reasons people don't start ventures is they're afraid of failure, or there's some fear that's hindering them. Fear of their family's going to think they're crazy, fear they're going to lose the farm, fear of public humiliation, whatever it may be, and especially fear of failure in its variety of nuances is such a huge wall, and that you have to overcome. And what we try to help people with is understanding we actually want you to fail fast, but we don't want you to have fatal failures, because a fatal failure, too often, women and men who are actually gifted to go do this, if that failure is too big, they get out of the game and they just go, I can't do that. And God loses somebody that could have been an incredible person who learned and built. The ministry Crosspoint, the church that my family and I started in 97 in West Houston and Katy, it grew to 3 locations, 1,600 in worship, acreage, et cetera, et cetera. But I had been starting stuff in ministry for 9 years before that, and learning, and stuff didn't work. So that failure and learning from the failure and having somebody help you mitigate it from being a fatal one, that's very, very critical in successful starting. So if you're listening and thinking, I've thought about starting something, one of the questions I want to know is, so tell me some other things you've started. Have you practiced starting, right, in smaller scale or whatever? Because future performance, is best determined by what you've done in the past. Not you wanted to do it, but you actually done it.
What have you started?
It really says if you're going to be effective and successful, and you can define that multiple ways. But at starting ventures, you have to be a lifelong learner. You've got to be dedicated to listening and learning. You've got to be confident, and that's that whole balance, right? You need to be both confident and humble. So confident that God's calling you here, but humble to listen and watch for the landmines and the signs and the counselors who are telling you, whoa, 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 or that's stupid or whatever it is. So we're very team oriented. Obviously, you can go through our process as solopreneur, but at some point you're going to need a team, and you're going to need vendors or providers, whoever it may be. But we're very much on the team standpoint. And one of the things we look for when we take you through our assessment is you may enjoy the startups phase, but what do you hope this becomes? Okay. Do you hope it becomes big or stay small? I mean, you may say, I just want it to be small and it just run by me. But at some point, what do you hope it becomes? And what other gifts do you need around you? Operations, for instance, who will take it then to that phase and operationalize it, and so that more people get involved and it can scale or what it may be. So
What makes a team lunch so powerful, and what ingredients are the key ingredients for creating a successful team in a mission driven setting?
what makes a team launch so powerful is the fact that you have these multiple gifts,
Mhm.
multiple personalities,
Mm.
but you're aligned around a singular mission, and I would say even a vision. So mission is what you're called to do, values are why you do it, and vision is where you're going. And what's important when you have a team launch is that you're united. You're going to have some common values, but you're also going to, each person's going to have slightly different values. But you're also you're going to have this common mission. You're here to do X, and hopefully you as a team are agreed on where you're trying to go, the vision. Now, in a startup, it's hard to do the vision. You can put a flag out there in the distance, but you're going to have to be evaluating if you get there or not. What we always encourage people is about year 3 to year 5, just press pause and ask yourself, so what did we start? Because
Wow.
we thought we were going to start this.
Wow.
And now what did we really start, and what have we really become? And that's a great time to just say, let's now solidify. Let's look at the values we thought we had, because you can always tell values by behaviors. So let's kind of find out what we really are, and then we can build now going forward on that. So the team launch, what's so powerful is that you have these multiple bodies with multiple gift streams pulling along. And if you're smart on a team launch, you as the team leader recruit leaders, not doers. So
Mm.
if you'll recruit a team of leaders who are united, they'll go find the doers. You don't have to find the doers. And then you can care for the leaders, right? And now you can even get it to have more legs. So
That is huge. That is a knowledge bomb. Wow, that is huge. No, we're talking about leaders. I mean, so what if you can give a few steps? I mean, what can somebody do right now to create a team launch?
I'm going to do a shameless plug. I have a little book called 7 Steps to Start
Okay.
on Amazon. 7 Steps to Start. It's it's an easy read, about 120 pages or so, and there's a section on there on this, and here's so there are different kinds of leaders. All right, different, they use different strengths in that, and my particular strength is I'm an influencer, I'm an activator, I get people going, so I love living through other people. uh, but one of the things I use the most in building team and launching is vision. So I like to paint pictures of where we're going, where God wants us to go, where He's calling us to be. If you're a passionate person, one of the things we want to know from you right away is, who are you passionate for? Because who you're trying to create this for is very, very important. Because otherwise, if you think you're just creating it for yourself, well, then you're going to sell it to yourself, but not to anybody else.
Mm.
Your financial model is not going to work. So what I've done, and the way I've kind of led, is by casting that vision, and that's how I go about recruiting. So when we help people recruit, the first step is to really commit this to serious prayer And by that, I mean, not a cliche. This is your number one thing you're praying about. It's,
Yeah.
look something like, Jesus, I believe, that's all I think,
Yeah.
you're calling me to start this thing. And I know I'm going to need other people. I ask that you would start bringing to mind people who could be a part of my team. But then you, as the person God's entrusted this with, need to do some evaluation of them and just think in terms of, are they a leader? Meaning, do they have followers? Are there
Yeah.
people who they influence? But secondly, how are they different from you? Because you want different people. You don't need another you. But then do they share that common value, like a heart for lost people or a heart for, you know, pets or whatever it may be? And then the way I always say, once you kind of have that list in mind, and you've got some little picture of what you want to start, then my big thing is you take them to lunch or breakfast, and I always forewarn them with an email or something. Hey, I'd like to get together with you. I want to talk about an idea I have, and just to try to see if it's something you might resonate with, and just enough they know enough, but not the whole story.
Yeah.
And then kind of share your heart. You've got to have when you go to recruit them, they're going to want to know how long is this for, but they're also going to want to know how they can make a significant contribution. And the best way for me to share that with them is to affirm what they have that I don't.
Mm.
Okay. So if I can lift them up and respect them and say, look, you've got gifts of financial, forecasting. I just don't have that. Would you be willing to give me that for a season? And generally speaking, we encourage when you build a team to launch, we encourage you to ask for a year commitment because that way there's an end time on it. It's not forever, but it's kind of long enough to help me get this thing off the ground. So
Wow.
that would be prayer, meditating, making your list of people. And actually, Cedric, I just put together a little guide on how to find leaders to help grow your ministry. So
Amazing.
we can put that in the notes here of the podcast, and people could download that too. So
Okay, that is awesome. Wow, thank you so much, Bill. The audience definitely gonna be better for that. It's another thing I want to, because you said something, and I was just thinking about it. So we're looking for a team of people. You mentioned the fact of someone that's opposite and different than you are. Here's the thing: what if someone, a leader, don't know what type of leader they are? What
Hmm.
should they do?
Well, I would encourage you to do some type of a leadership assessment. All right. It could be something as simple as an assessment out of your church. It could be one of the old school ones going, back out to Saddleback. But there are also a number of ones right now. The Enneagram is the hot one right now. People tend to love that one. We actually, in our ministry, we have an assessment that we've created
Mhm.
that measures 3,000 behavioral traits. It looks at your entrepreneurial giftings because we're looking for those type of people. So you can also go to our website, FiveTwo.com, and there's a little quiz there. So FiveTwo.com. You can take a little quiz. It's about a 10 to 12 question quiz. That would help you assess that. But then there's a more in-depth assessment that we can run you through if you're serious about this. And it's a once you take it, then we actually meet with you for about an hour and a half and debrief you on it. And that right there helps you decide, or helps you see, A, do I have some entrepreneurial chops? And B, who else do I need to mitigate my deficiencies? So that's one way you could do it. But there are also a number of books, and Will Mancini has a unique process. It's called Unique, YOUNIQUE. That's something that you could do too. I'm kind of big on this because of my entrepreneurial get it done yesterday spirit. I'm kind of big on, give me something that in 30 minutes,
Yeah.
okay, or maybe an hour, it can like show me. And in today's technological psychometric analysis, ours takes you 30 minutes to take, and boom, you're off to the races. So I kind of like those type of tools.
That's awesome. That is so amazing. Thank you so much for that. Because I mean, there are some leaders on here that's, maybe just getting started in the beginning stage, and just more information. So thank you for sharing that. What characteristics, values, and qualities do you feel every great leader should have?
Great leaders and great entrepreneurial leaders are slightly different. They're going to share, like you said, common traits. Integrity has to be right there at the top. I mean, I would say the most important thing is your relationship with Christ, your faith, your trust in Him, and what He's done for you. That you are just to know that at the end of every day, all you've really got is God's grace.
Yeah.
You know, it's not your performance, it's not your success. If it works well, praise God. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. But I do, when I go to bed at night, I have this grace. So I think a person who is rich in grace for herself, himself, for others, and then of integrity, meaning what you say you believe is lived out in how you act, so that when people look at you, they don't see two people, they see one person. That integrity is huge. And then I would just say, from a leadership standpoint, there is a clarity of, kind of go back to your podcast, one of your things, of why are you here in the world?
Yeah.
Okay, what is your purpose, and what is the divine dream that God has given you, that He's looking for you to, in some way, small or large, bring about. When you're clear on that, then others become clear on where they stand in relation to you. Now, they may not like your cause and they may not like your passion, and that's fine. But at least they know, if I get close to Bill, he's gonna want more people to know Jesus, kind of thing, or whatever. And if I don't like that, I'll go to a movie or something. So I think that's what I would just say: this faith, your relationship with Christ, your integrity. There's a little book I read years ago called the dark side of leadership.
Okay.
And it really talks about doing what your heart knows you should do. All right. When I counsel husbands and wives, or husbands especially, one of my questions is, why would you not do what your wife wants you to do? Okay. I mean, just let's just talk about that dynamic of, if she wants you today to clean the windows, why would you not do that? Well, because I want to go do my own stuff. Okay. But what if you did what she wanted you to do? So it's that kind of thing that I think is important in leadership. Entrepreneurial leadership, Harvard did a great study a few years back, and they found that the difference between a great leader and a great entrepreneurial leaders, they're like exceptional at influencing, so they know how to sell.
Yeah.
Secondly, they love to control from start to finish. And then third, those entrepreneurial leaders, they are able to gather people better than most. So,
Wow. Let's talk a little bit about FiveTwo Network. How did you get it started, and why are you here?
Yeah, so FiveTwo Network grew out of the fact that I was always an evangelist, pastor, and then a church planter. My family and I started this church in West Houston. And when I started that, I started working with other planters, and we started to see really quickly that starting things, especially churches, but not just churches, starting is very lonely. It's very demanding, and that oftentimes, if you're starting something as there's a sending org or somebody that sent you to start it, if you are successful, human nature says that they start to think you're suspect. Okay, that you're selling out your theology, or you're doing something you shouldn't do, because nobody would be that successful. And so it becomes a place that you don't have a lot of camaraderie. There's not a lot of know-how. There wasn't at this time when we started. So we started FiveTwo in 2009, and it comes from the feeding of the 5,000. Our name does. 5 loaves, 2 fish.
Wow.
And we chose that name because in that story, in that miracle of Jesus, he's faced with 5,000 men plus women and children. Let's call it 8,000 people. They're in a remote place. He starts teaching, and then he notices that they're hungry, and he tells his disciples, "You give them something to eat." And both times in Mark chapter 6, when Jesus talks, both times in this miracle, it's a command. So the apostles come in and they say, "Hey, you need to send the crowd away. It's a remote place." And he says, "You give them something to eat." And that reminds us that we are called to care for our community. Okay, so when we see a problem, we're the ones who are supposed to do something about it. We can't pawn it off.
Wow.
And they go, "Oh, that would take half a year's wages. Certainly you don't want us. I mean, what they're saying is you don't want us to waste that kind of money, right, on people we'll never see again. And everybody's been hungry one meal. I mean, they're not going to die from this. And he says, go and see how many loaves and fish you have. So now he commands them to go back into the crowd. And what's so beautiful about the miracle is that Jesus uses the food, 5 loaves and 2 fish, from the little boy in the crowd. He uses the crowd's food to feed the crowd. The apostles didn't have the
Oh
food.
man.
And so what we have to realize when we're starting something, especially when we're starting in the name of Jesus and we want it to financially be sustainable for us,
Yeah.
but we want it to bless the community, the resources to do it are already in there. Jesus is already doing something, and you need to go and see what's there. So, time after time with FiveTwo, we took that name and we decided we were about 2012, we decided we were going to help women and men, lay people, just typical Christians start things because, man, if we could mobilize that crowd, that would be a huge mobilizing event.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's when we shifted and started our focus there. And what we have found since then, if you worry about where the resources are going to come from, you're never going to start. But if you'll be faithful and start, and as you go, work the process and let God provide, you'll be amazed at what God will keep doing for you. So in 2015, I went all in to leading FiveTwo full time. So for the first 6 years, I was leading congregation and leading the network. And then 2015, I went all in. And then we developed this whole process called Start New. And our training process, we call it Mother Teresa meets a friendly Mark Cuban.
Mm.
And that's how we help you successfully
Love it, man.
start. So
I love it. I love it. I love it. We're talking about starting and church plants. What impact has the coronavirus made on planting and starting?
yeah, and starting nonprofits or for profits or whatever. Well, obviously, on one hand, there was a whole slice of people that saw the opportunity, right? It was a disruption caused by a broken world. I mean, this pandemic hits, and all of a sudden the rules are all changed, and there were people who saw opportunities there and have done quite well. I mean, Zoom alone is, what a
Yes.
scale there. But
Phenomenal.
and I think from the mom and pops on the ground, the challenges for them has been that so much of life is face to face and sitting with people and involved with people, and especially those of us who have been involved in ministry of any kind, right? It's that personal touch. And now all of a sudden, how are we going to do that in ways that are honoring of the rules of the land and yet not selling out our soul? There's that whole tension in our society right now. I think what we saw with churches and nonprofits is that and for profits even, they were so dealing in face-to-face interactions, and when that was taken away, how do we still relate to each other without being in the same space? And churches, before COVID, their commodity was divine in-person community, right? That was, you could get community anywhere, but to get divine in-person community, it was that church. And all of a sudden the in-person thing was taken away, and now they're trying to do divine community through YouTube and Zoom and apps and things like that. And but I think we all kind of sense that it's not the same, and it's not as rich.
Yeah.
I mean, it's community, and I don't want to debate that. I think you and I meeting here, we're having a relationship. I've loved getting to know you just in this brief.
Absolutely. Same here.
But when you're sitting in that same space, I remember one of the teams we helped launch out in California was Eritrean group from Eritrea, and they were transitioning Anglo Church to Eritrean Church, which is a phenomenal job in and of itself. But they took us to lunch went to dinner one evening to an Eritrean restaurant, and in that restaurant there's this giant, and it looked like a giant pizza pan, and on it was all these different types of food, and you would kind of twirl the pan and eat, using the bread, whatever type of bread that was. But that experience was, had I never had that with Dawit and his family, I wouldn't know him on the same level. So it's hard for us. I think I encourage people to consider how they can do the in-person, how that can work and what do they need to do to get back to that as quickly as they can.
If someone wanted to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
They can go to two places. One would be FiveTwo.com, FiveTwo.com. And again, I do a weekday devotion, goes out. It's a 2-minute multiplier. It's just a brief thing, goes out every morning. You can sign up there if you want to be a part of our email list. You can find out more about our network at FiveTwo.com and how we support you. But then if you're interested in training and you would like to be a part, and we have all of our materials that you can just on demand download it, do it yourself. We also have a cohort version where you could get it with your team into a cohort that meets virtually every other week. That's at startnewtraining.com, all one phrase, startnewtraining.com. And we'd love to have you be a part of that. Our goal, Cedric, is to have 1,500 people in 2021 go into our training, because we're trying to get as many people as we can out into the field. And so we price that where you can get all the training for $95. You get everything. And it's a lot of material there, 52 short videos, 12 modules, everything we've been doing over the last 5 years, we put it there. So we'd be honored to walk with you and help you be successful in your business, whatever endeavor, whatever venture you want to do that's going to bring a blessing to your community and to your family.
Wow, that is awesome. The harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. I love it. I love the mission. I love what you're doing. Bill, I am so excited. On behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure, my honor. And thank you for inviting me. And just thank you for the opportunity to get to know you and your ministry as well. And God be with you as you do his work.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And don't forget to subscribe to Lead to Greatness if this is your first time. And this podcast was helpful to you, leave a big thumbs up. And also, I want you to check out our Marriage Coach podcast, the podcast with my wife and I. If you're on iTunes, please rate this podcast and leave a review and help get the word out. Again, thank you, Lead to Greatness Nation, for joining us on today. Looking forward to seeing you again on next week. Till then, remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace. We out.